Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Ted Lasso Season 2, Episode 7, Headspace, is the most recent of the Ted Lasso episodes. This one starts off with a little ditty, I Got You, Babe, with Roy and Keely getting their day started. It's a little montage, a little Groundhog Day-esque montage. I guess the montage isn't very much Groundhog Day, but the montage itself gives the feeling, gives the vibe of Groundhog Day, in addition to the song, I Got You, Babe, of Roy and Keely, kind of their constant surrounding of each other, not only in their morning routines, but also at work. Now that Roy is a coach at AFC Richmond, Keely works in the marketing department, and so they go into work together. And, Roy, not necessarily a clingy guy in the standard definition of clingy. He's definitely more of a sincere a dude that wants to be around his girlfriend in a more sincere way, as opposed to the clingy dudes who tend to do similar things that Roy can't. I guess it's just some guys, it's okay. I mean, it's just there's a fine line with what you're doing, and even that line, even when you're Roy Kent, can be too much. And part of this episode is Roy realizing that he can be too much in his relationship, and that maybe she needs some space. Maybe Keely needs a little space for herself. And that's one of the running themes through this episode. Keely, multiple times in this episode, is having conversations with people, whether it be in Rebecca's office or the smoking hideout in the shoe locker room. She ends up, attracting many people who want to help and discuss. That's one thing about this show, is that people, the communal kind of talking about things in an open space with a bunch of people is very unique, I would say. There's not a lot of, at least in reality, there's not a lot of times where you're getting the tribunal of people together to discuss problems, or discussing problems at all. But yeah, this one, whether it's the Diamond Dogs or Keely and the girls or what the players themselves, there's always these group discussion opportunities. And Keely, on many instances through this episode, is having those discussions with a lot of people, and Roy interrupting them, knowing that they're talking about him, but also not caring. That's one thing I love about Roy, is that, like, he understands who he is as, like, a well-known soccer player, a former superstar in the sport, and now a coach of a dwindling team. Like, he seems to understand his star power, but also it doesn't affect him. He's a humble person, and on some level probably helps him be brutally honest when necessary, but also he's comfortable in his honesty, in who he is. And when he comes into these multiple discussions of Keely talking about how much he's smothering her, it doesn't seem to bother him. But towards the end, it's all about talking. He talks to Keely. They figure things out. We also have Nate, the Wonder Kid, still riding high, still filled with ego, and really being rude to players, as well as the equipment manager guy, the guy that replaced him when he became a coach. Nate's just dumping on people. And this episode really highlights one interaction that he has with one of the soccer players. I forget the guy's name offhand, but he's the guy that was in with Sharon in a previous episode recently, where he, just kind of coming out, having a mantra of like, you're a good dude, you're a strong dude, you're, like the kind of positive self-talk kind of a deal that he started to do. And Nate is chopping him down, which Nate, is already shown to be that kind of a person. Went from a quiet guy into the guy who roasts people, which there's a fine line between roasting somebody and being funny about it and just being rude and hateful and just talking shit. Like, there's the line. Even roast comedians can regularly cross over that line, and it's easy to just be mean. It's easy to say hack things to people, to cut them down, to be mean. Being able to be funny doing that is the skill. And there's a lot of comics that don't have that skill or forget that that's part of it, that line that they're walking can easily be misconstrued as hate speech. And Nate, in some instances, is learning that lesson as he's opening up and being more vocal about himself, and now getting kind of the approval of society on social media. His ego is blown up through the roof, and Coach Beard sees this and confronts him and kind of sets him straight, at least to the player. Now, what Nate does to this new equipment manager hasn't changed, and it's a bummer. I like Nate. I want Nate to be like how Jamie was this egotistical, annoying prick, and he's folded back into the team and has been a better player. That's nice to see. But Nate, I have a lot of love for Nate, and it's sad to see him being a jerk. But he's dealing with it slowly. But I think it's something's gonna happen. Something's building up clearly between Nate and this equipment manager, and I just have a feeling something bad's gonna happen. And I don't want to see Nate go. I don't know what's going to happen with the show, with the series. I don't know. There's 3 episodes left. But it feels like there's a lot of things that feel like Nate not being around is possible. Like he's definitely shown to be a good coach. So other teams wanting to take him makes sense. The fact that he has these problems with some players, but also with, behind the scenes people, that's kind of another thing that would want them to get rid of him potentially. So who knows? Or we could see an employee flip out and some bad things happening on that end. I could be wrong. It could just be a simple thing where Nate sits down with Sharon and then 2 minutes later he's apologizing and he's fixed. Right? The show has Sharon, who for a lot of issues in the show, for a lot of characters that have had problems, Sharon's been able to instantaneously fix them. Danny Rojas has the yips. By the end of the episode, instantaneously fixed. She hasn't fixed Ted, which Ted in this episode is finally opening up. A little over 4 years ago, I started The Many Faces. It's an ongoing series of abstract ink portraits. Each piece is improvised. Each piece is released daily. Start collecting now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. And save yourself 25% when you use coupon code RTS. That stands for The Ray Taylor Show, because that's what you're listening to, and I love you. So I want you to save 25% when you use that coupon code. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF and use coupon code RTS to save 25% when you start collecting one of over 1,600 original ink paintings. By myself, I made them. Support me. I love you. Back to the show. Which Ted in this episode is finally opening up. Like, he's got the very American, especially male American kind of tough it out. Like, we don't talk about trauma, suck it up and move on. You know, like there's there culturally for men in this country, in the United States, being open and honest about your feelings is the farthest from what we're brought up, what we're taught, what we're surrounded by, what society. I mean, that whole self-care thing is very new, especially to like my generation is probably the last, like, millennials, I guess, because I'm on the cusp of millennials. I was like 1980 is like when I was born, so I think technically I'm a millennial, but Gen Z, millennials, has kind of been the shift where dealing with mental health has become far less stigmatized today than it was in the 90s when I was growing up, you know? Like, suck it up, tough it up, guys don't cry, especially towards men. I think it's been way more acceptable for women to discuss feelings. And I think because of that, there is a lot of stereotypes there. But men have just as many traumas, maybe different traumas, but we're told to shut up and bottle it up and, you know, don't cry. So Ted comes from that old school mentality of thought and, you know, is hesitant to sit down with Sharon. Obviously, in the last episode, the end of the last episode, we see him cry, like kind of curled up on her couch asking for help. So he's kind of come to a breaking point where he wants to ask for help. But in this episode, which his second visit to Sharon, clearly awkward, really puts her down, you know, really talks a lot of shit to Sharon and her profession, and really being disrespectful to just anybody that would spend their life studying a thing, especially when what she does is so similar to how Ted coaches, which after their second attempt at discussing his problems, where he talks shit to her and then just leaves, he finally comes back throughout this episode and she tells him that she didn't appreciate that and that she's trying to help people and cares about helping people despite being paid to help people, just like Ted is being paid and he's helping these people. He's helping these athletes, you know, become their best potential. So there's a lot of mutual respect to be had between Sharon and Ted. Seems like that she broke through with that, and it seems like Ted is open to it, which is good. Which is good. Our society, I mean, it would probably help if there was universal health care in this country, which would include mental health care, where people could go see a therapist to help with their problems. That would be really nice to have that capability. But at least, like, in talking about it and being more open, Ted is moving into the future, moving into the now, the time where people are a lot more open about mental health care. Let's see where we're at here. We have Rebecca and Sam, whole mystery thing. They still don't know about each other. It's briefly touched on in this episode. Not really a big aspect of it. Most of this episode was the of Roy being too clingy with Keeley. It's Nate and his ego management, and Ted with his emotional management. But yeah, in the end, Roy learns that Keeley needs her space. She's afraid that he's going to leave her. But of course, Roy, it took a little bit. It took Jamie Tart as the voice of reason, the one that really was able to get through to Roy that she needs space and that he needs to, while discussing other things, soccer-related things. But, it's ironic that Jamie Tart would be the one giving Roy advice. But he did get that advice. He heeded that advice, and he executed on it, and to great success. As all of Roy's changes, Roy, effortlessly has been changing throughout this season, bringing on new things, and really understanding who he is, who he is now with this next chapter in his life, this new chapter. Of course, you have Nate, who, is told by Coach Beard about this one instance and does a really good job at apologizing. But below the surface, which Coach Beard isn't aware of, is Nate really still shitting on the other equipment manager. But yeah, so that's where we're at with this episode. No talk of Coach Beard and his girlfriend and his QAnon girlfriend, not even brought up at all. Nothing about the soccer, no Higgins stuff, no Rebecca stuff, really. Those were the main storylines for this episode. A good episode all in all, and excited to see where this goes. Scared to see what happens with Nate. I'm a fan of Nate. I want Nate to be great. And it's a bummer. And the actor's doing a great job as far as towing that line for a character to be adorable, for me to want the best for him, while also him clearly, he's just sucked into the social media ego, just insanity. But yeah, so I'm hoping for the best for Nate. Interesting to see. It's just a matter of episodes. Sam and Rebecca are going to find out who they are. They ran into each other in this episode, but nothing, just the same polite exchange. Sam super respectful and polite, and then Rebecca just, a nice, pleasant woman. So it's going to be interesting to see how that mixes stuff up. I would imagine they're saving that for the last episode. I have a feeling the last episode is going to be Sam and Rebecca get confronted with who they've been talking to and falling in love with. I think Sam is going to be, or not Sam, I think Nate is going to be confronted with how he's changed in a bad way this season. Right? He's learned different aspects to be better and to kind of find that gradient scale of being from nice to overly, that line past roasting. So he's definitely grown, but these tools, they could be used for bad. So we'll see. And of course, Roy and Keeley. If this show ends, I'd love to see just a Roy and Keeley kind of show. Even though there's seems to be very little drama between the two of them. But yeah, anyway. So that's it for Ted Lasso Season 2, Episode 7, Headspace. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/Inspired Disorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Follow the show on Instagram. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!